Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Patriots Report. My name is Christopher Price, the Boston Globe, joined as always by my podcast partner, former Patriots wide receiver, Chris Hogan. This week, we have a very special guest, Eric Edholm of NFL.com, writer and draft analyst. Eric, I know we only have you for a short time here, so I want to jump right into this. Let me give you a scenario.
Yes.
Patriots are at number 4, and Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are both off the board. They're unable to trade out of number 4. Is this Will Campbell time, or is there someone else that we're not talking about here that maybe is a better fit for them at 4?
Yeah, I mocked Armand Membu to the Patriots about 2 or 3 weeks ago in that fourth spot. And then had someone call me, not affiliated with the Patriots, interestingly, but someone I think who would be in the know, who said, you may want to think about Will Campbell there. And then all of a sudden, like the Vegas odds shifted, the mock draft shifted. I was a little behind on that one. So it does feel like he's a real strong possibility. And, we only get 15 minutes with these guys at the combine, if that. Sometimes they pull them off earlier. But, it wasn't hard. And I think you were there too, because we discussed the arm length stuff at the combine and all that. But it wasn't hard to sort of listen to him talk and think, boy, I could see Mike Vrabel just saying, yeah, this could be a foundational piece for my team, and yes, left tackle's a need. Yes, that's the primary driver, his talent. But also you got to have a personality fit and I think a temperament fit. And I think he checks those boxes off. I have some people that I've known for a long time who've been around LSU football and swear by this kid and, praise his character and all that too. And, he had some tough reps. There's no doubt. I mean, there were times when he was sort of had his hands full, but he always battled. He always competed. And I think he brings a little bit of an edge to that position. So it makes sense, especially with Membu having been strictly a right tackle at Mizzou and, and Morgan Moses likely sort of shoehorned into that spot, I guess.
Is there a world where, let's just say, one of those guys, Carter, Hunter, are still on the board, that we still take Will Campbell? Is that still, you think that's still an option? Like, left tackle is obviously a need, right? So offensive line is a need for New England, but these are like generational type players that potentially could really change the outlook of your program, of the organization. So do you make that move? I mean, it'd be tough to pass up Travis Hunter. I'm a little iffy about how successful Abdul Carter is going to be, but you just never know with those types of things. But Travis Hunter, I mean, gotta think that it'd be hard to pass on him if he's still on the board.
I 100% agree with that part. I don't think I could let him get by me just for the pure fascination of wanting to see what he can be and what he can do in this league. And it's been so interesting hearing people from different teams sort of explain how they would, and this includes teams that probably have no shot at drafting him, right? But hey, if you were to get Hunter, what would you do with him? What would the plan be? I assumed it would be mostly as a corner, and then you kind of moonlight on offense, right? You have a role, a package, third down, whatever, 2-minute drill. But then the more time went on, the more conversations that I had, people were saying, don't forget about him on offense. Like, this guy is a legit threat, especially if you're a team that is still building an offense. Like, you're still putting things together. You don't know what your strengths are exactly. You don't know how bad your weaknesses are. This is a guy you can throw a short pass to, and he can make special things happen. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to say he's bust proof, because I don't think you ever say that about a 180 something pound player, but man, it's hard to imagine him being a failure in the NFL. So, Carter maybe comes with more risk, obviously, with the foot injury, and, he's not the biggest rusher. There's a little bit of a role or position that you have to sort of iron out with him defensively, but he's my number one player. I think he could end up being as impactful as Micah Parsons in the long term. That's a big name. I realize I'm not saying they're one for one comp, but I think there's some overlap there. So yeah, if one of them were there, I mean, I would not say that you just, oh, well, hey, we kind of talked ourselves into Will Campbell. Like, this is I hate to say it like this. I don't want to say it's like a consolation pick. Okay, well, we'll take Will Campbell, but it's reading the tea leaves of like the most likely scenario is that it's going to be Ward, Hunter, and then Carter at number 3. The Giants, to me, are still a little bit of a mystery. D end is not exactly a weak spot for them. Could they trade Thibodeau or Brian Burns? Sure, they could. Could they keep all three? Yeah, for a year or whatever. Absolutely. So there's a little mystery there, but I suspect it's going to end up being, Ward, Hunter, Carter, and then the Patriots will have the decision to make. But I think you raise a really good point. It would be hard to pass on these two guys.
You touched on a really good point, and I kind of want to expand on this a little bit, that it feels like, at least as we sit here on April 16th, roughly a week or so before the draft, that the Giants remain a wild card in this whole process. And specifically as it relates to the Patriots, because you look at the Giants and you look at Carter and you say, well, they already are set at that position. But then Carter presents himself, at least in my opinion, as one of those guys who, again, like we talked about before, is a generational talent. That would take him off the board. There's also the possibility, I don't know how much stock you put in the conversation, but Shadur Sanders. And Shadur Sanders is out there. That talk continues to build about him possibly at number 3 to the Giants. I don't know if I'd put a whole lot of stock in that, but
right.
Kind of tell me a little bit about the Giants and their approach as we sit here right now, mid-April, as it relates to the draft. How much is this, all this kind of a smokescreen, and how much of maybe there's some substance to it?
Yeah, and I've heard there's a few Giants fans who creep up into Connecticut and Rhode Island who maybe listen to this podcast too and infiltrate New England territory a little bit. But they're in such a fascinating position just because of, I think some people felt like Brian Daboll was going to lose his job and that maybe Joe Shane was in trouble, the general manager as well. So clearly both guys come into, having watched Saquon Barkley hoist the trophy, and, last season was an utter disaster. Prior to that, they released a starting quarterback. The year before was a mess too. So they're coming into this draft with a whole lot of pressure. They've accomplished some things in free agency, but I wouldn't say the work is anywhere close to done. And so to me, they need as many sure things as possible. They need as many stand-up double picks or home runs, obviously, but as many boxes checked as possible. And does Carter do that? Yeah, in that you're adding a terrific talent to the defensive side of the ball. And if you're going to have, a strength, you might as well bolster it. But, does it fill all these other holes that we're talking about? No, it doesn't. So the quarterback one, you've got Russ on a 1-year deal. You've got Jameis Winston on a lower end backup type of deal for 2 years. And you've got Tommy DeVito. Clearly, there's no long-term solution right now. Shadur at 3 feels too rich for me, and I suspect it feels too rich for the Giants when it comes to, to draft day. I think it's going to be Carter if I had to guess right now. And then they're going to try to figure out a way to navigate the landscape of how do we move up from our 2nd-round pick, or do we stay right there and take maybe Jalen Milroe if he's still there? Milroe is a player who, I'll tell you what, when this process started a couple months back, I would have guessed round 3 or 4. Now I'm, obviously he's been invited to the draft in Green Bay. That tells you something. I think he's going to be a top 40 pick, and I wouldn't be shocked if he goes way earlier than some people think. So that's a name that's going to be a wild card no matter what. Do the Saints take a quarterback at 9? Are the Steelers getting antsy about Aaron Rodgers at 21? What about the Browns? They have more draft ammo technically than the Giants do. So the Giants are in this position where, it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't a little bit. And how are they going to be able to butter both sides of the bread here? Yeah, you want to get your blue chip talent, but you also have to fill the quarterback need. And standing pat may not get it done. So just big picture, I think they were hoping they would get Hunter. I think of the two that they would have chosen Travis Hunter just because of positional need and perhaps even individual evaluation.
About the Shadur Sanders pick, is this a situation where we just see him continue to fall, and where it's like, okay, we're getting to nearing the end of the 1st round, or third of the way through, and he's still not picked, and really teams really didn't think he was going to be there, but we already know we want needs that we need to be filled, and all of a sudden it's like 2nd round and he's still available? I mean, is that like one of those types of awkward situations that we're looking at on draft day where the camera's going to be on him? It's on his girlfriend. It's on Dion. It's like, shit, like we thought this guy was going to be a top 5 pick, and now
I know. That's when everyone goes to the cell phones, right? And start turning the shoulder and moving around the room a little bit and pivoting away from the cameras, right? I think he's going to be in Colorado. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. But I mean, I don't know the answer to it. I've tried to figure out all these scenarios. I think the Saints situation is really interesting because I will say I've heard more Jackson Dart buzz for them. So let's just say, let's say Dart is the pick at 9. I know that feels a little crazy right now, but let's say that's what happens. Does Shadur go in the first round? I mean, I really don't know that there's a natural spot unless the Steelers start getting a little twitchy about Rodgers and say, we don't know what this guy's going to do, or we still need to have a plan for after next year. And that's why the Milroe buzz has only grown too, and where I think he's going to end up going a lot earlier than some people realize. So, Shadur, it's funny. He kind of reminds me of your old teammate Jimmy Garoppolo in a little bit, right? I mean, he's very accurate, very precise in that short. He can throw in rhythm, different offenses, but I think there's some overlap, and neither were tremendous athletes, but they could get you a first down if they needed to. They could buy time with their legs and move around the pocket. So, Jimmy was the 62nd pick in the draft. And so obviously if Shadur's last name was Garoppolo or something else, I think we wouldn't necessarily be shocked by this conversation, because I always felt like his talent ceiling was oversold early on. And this is not a knock against Shadur, because I happen to think his floor is pretty good. I think you'd be hard pressed to say that he's just going to be a bust unless injuries absolutely destroy his career. But there isn't that flash. There isn't that exciting upside that you would get with a Josh Allen type prospect or something. So, I think a lot of these teams who are picking quarterbacks and are fearing for their job security, their thinking is, if I'm going to miss, aim high. I'm going to miss with as big a sort of dice roll as I can get. And I'm not sure Shadur offers that. So that's why his stock is kind of in limbo right now. And fascinating stuff. I mean, again, he's my 33rd overall player, 34th, something like that. But I see a player who has a chance to be good, solid. I don't know if he'll ever be a top 10 quarterback in this league.
This feels like a draft where, specific to the Patriots, it's going to be easier to trade up from 38 than it is to trade down from number 4. If they're doing that, what's the likeliest scenario that they're doing that for at the end of the first round? If we presume, again, they end up sticking at 4 and they take Will Campbell, is it for another offensive lineman? Is it for a wide receiver? Is it for someone else that we're not talking about right now?
Yeah. I don't know that, could Vrabel go a couple rounds without a defensive guy? Maybe, I don't know. But you obviously have to think about Drake, and obviously the focus of the offseason seems to have been on the other side of the ball and then the big investments and, what they already bring back defensively. So, I think they probably have to focus on that offense, and it could be another offensive lineman. I guess it could, depending on who's available. You tell me, what is the plan at guard and center right now?
Well, they have Garrett Bradbury, who they picked up from Minnesota.
That's right, I forgot.
And they have a handful of guys who filled in last year: Ben Brown, Cole Strange. So you feel like, okay, well, that's the plan moving forward. One of the guard positions, you're going to get some sort of combination of Cole Strange. I mean, he did look healthy enough to play on a regular basis last year. And then
the other,
what's that?
It's like we barely seen Cole. It's
and then the other guard spot is Owenu. And so then you feel good about the right tackle position, at least for a year, theoretically, with Morgan Moses. There's still a lot of questions. Left tackle, is it Vidarian Lowe? We know that, one of the kids is probably going to get a shot there, at least, through the spring and the summer months, just to see if they can play. But I would think that there would be a run on tackles, the Josh Connerly types there at the end of the first round, that they might want to get in on, even if they go after Will Campbell at number 4.
Yeah, and there's a kid at Minnesota, Eranti Ursary, who's I've sort of said, like, if you look at kind of what the Chiefs and Ravens have done, and Rams for that matter too. I mean, like these big sort of swift moving for their size right tackles. I would pencil him into that role as well, and I would say that he's going to have some early second round buzz, I think, at that point. Connerly, you mentioned, not as big, more athletic, can get overwhelmed by power at times, but boy, he's super competitive, and I kind of like him. He's really grown on me as the process has gone on. And if you took his 10 worst reps and put him on a tape, you'd go, ugh. But you put his 50 best reps, and you would just see a very solid, steady, above average contributor. I don't know that he'll ever be a star, but I think he could be a very solid player. So he's certainly in that mix too. If it's receiver, I haven't heard much Emeka Egbuka buzz, but with Vrabel having his Ohio State connections, maybe there's some intel there. But to me, Egbuka is one of the easiest evaluations in this draft. I don't mean to say it like I'm a genius at scouting, but I just mean when you watch him, you see, okay, this guy gets it. He's intelligent. He's smart. He's competitive. He's got the body type that's successful in this league. No, he's not going to blaze by people, but when you go to Ohio State, first of all, you get to be coached by Brian Hartline, one of the best receiver coaches in the nation. Number two, you're amongst all these five-star talents who are, they at one point when he started there, they had Jamison Williams, who later went to Alabama. They had Chris Olave. They had Marvin Harrison Jr. So you get an idea of what he was steeped in. And guess who had more yards than all those guys? Emeka Egbuka. I mean, I think he's destined to be a super reliable, great number two, maybe a low end number one at some point. But he's another one that I think from just a reliability standpoint, it's hard to miss on that pick if you get him.
I think the more competition we can add into that room, because that's obviously one of the questions going into this season right now is really how much firepower can we add to this offense to really support Drake. And I know we got to protect him, and we're going to address that, but how much firepower can we give this kid to let him be successful? And right now, you got, we added Stephon, but coming off ACL. So how much is he going to be able to do in the offseason? And then we have a couple of the young kids that we're going to hope kind of mature a little bit. But I think the more competition that you can add to that group is only going to help this team this offseason going into the season. So I'm all for getting a receiver. I don't know when or where in the draft, but if you can add a guy that's going to really have a lot of upside to him and not really have any real downside if he doesn't really pan out. But I think that's one of the positions that I'm looking or interested in this draft to see if we take a receiver like of that sort of talent.
And who knows, maybe Polk and Baker, like the light comes on or a different system or whatever, like that would be great, wouldn't it? But to me, I mean, like you said, let's before we know it's fixed, let's keep adding as many talents to that position and size too. I mean, that's one thing. They have some pretty good medium and smaller framed guys. I mean, DeMario's a fine receiver, but like there's just limitations what some of their guys could do physically.
Give me a Chris Hogan type. Give me a late round guy. Give me an undrafted free agent guy who just screams out New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel type of player that we should be talking about, not necessarily on day one, but maybe a day two or a day three guy.
This might be the ultimate Chris Hogan pick of all time here. Hold on. Let me verify it. Isaac Tisla from Arkansas. I believe he played at Hillsdale College before that. He's an interesting guy, man. I think he looked really smooth in his breaks, really kind of subtle in his movement for a guy who's 6'4", 216, 18, something like that. Big hands too. I mean, he's got the big mitts, really good athlete. I think he ran a 4.42 or something at the combine. Vertical jump, almost 40 inches. Like, this dude is a really good athlete who put up monster numbers at the FCS level, then transferred to Arkansas and had two good seasons. I mean, if you look at their passing game, there were some limitations there, but he seems to be like I would have guessed round 6 or 7 prior to the Senior Bowl, and every day he kept stacking good practices, good red zone reps, good one-on-one reps and down there. Mismatch, he's kind of a slot, big slot is how I would describe him. But, you could also play him outside too. And, high points it well, good body control, not the play speed, like, does it translate? Like, did I see 4.4 speed when I watched him play? Not quite, but he moves really well. So I kind of like Isaac Tesla. So that's how I've been told to pronounce it. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. And it's not the car, right? It's a little different, spelled two A's, I think. So, but yeah, he's an interesting one who's sort of caught my attention the last couple of months.
Well, let's keep an eye out for him if he can translate to a Chris Hogan type B1 instead.
Finish this sentence for me, Eric.
Okay.
The Patriots draft will be successful if they.
Yeah, I think if they start building a foundation on offense, and again, you never want to, like you said, let's say a crazy thing happens and Carter falls to them or something. I'm not going to nick him for that. I'm not going to say, well, they didn't follow the plan. No, of course not. But I think obviously you'd love to have a more viable situation where the protection is at least more weeks than not, fairly reliable. You can get Drake into a comfort level, not having to kind of see ghosts and look over his shoulders and feel like he's constantly under duress and that he's always got to get the ball out fast. I would still say kind of building back the run game too, though. That's got to be part of what they do, and that includes the offensive line and tight ends. So, yeah, I would say just having somewhat of a foundation on that side of the ball where you can feel pretty good. I think defensively, like, could they line up today and play? Probably. Yeah. I mean, is it a complete picture? Maybe a few more pieces, sure. But they could probably field a team today and feel pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. Offense, I'm less certain of that. So if you can cross off left tackle, and you never know if they're all going to be good, right? But left tackle, receiver, maybe a mid-round pick to help bolster the interior a little bit, a guard center type who can play both. I would say maybe even add a tight end and maybe even a running back. So again, more later picks, but tight end and running back, this year's depth at those positions feels strong to me. Those are positions that I would like to dip into in rounds 5 through 7 and see what's still available.
Is the kid from Penn State? Is he a first rounder? The tight end.
Say again.
The kid from Penn State, is he a first rounder? The tight end.
Oh yeah, Tyler Warren, absolutely. I mean, I think it's funny because I put him in a mock to the Jaguars at number 5, and I had people just ridiculing me, mocking me. But now some of the Jaguars writers are doing that. I don't know that I'll quite pull the trigger on that, but I would say that the clock probably starts with him at the Jets at 7. And then the Bears at 10 are a team that have done a lot of work on him. I think they may want to do some 12 personnel and kind of mix things up with Ben Johnson. But if he lasts past 14 at the Colts, there's got to be an injury situation I'm not aware of, because I'm not saying he's not Rob Gronkowski. I won't compare anyone to Rob, but he is that style of tight end, inline, who can also flex out. You could put him under center. They did some Wildcat stuff with him. The USC tape is an absolute gas. Like, that's like every tight end's dream to be featured like that. So he's got some versatility, but he's big enough to line up in line and also be that physical presence who can, bully safeties and linebackers and get his way in the middle part of the field. So I think he's a top 12, 15 pick all day, but, he could even crack the top 10.
Eric, 25 years ago this week, Chris and I were talking about this before you came on. The Patriots drafted a quarterback in the 6th round, 199th overall. And that kind of led them to really kind of a team building philosophy where it's like you take a quarterback every single year.
Yeah.
A late round guy, whether it's, an undrafted guy, a camp arm, because with the theory that you never know what you're going to get, as the Patriots did 25 years ago. They let go of Joe Milton. They added Josh Dobbs. Is there a guy out there who projects to be kind of a late round guy that the Patriots might want to take a flyer on, bring him in, kind of kick the tires and see what they might have with him?
I mean, it's already paid off, hasn't it? Right? You use a pick on Milton, you develop him, you play him one game, and then you trade him for more than what you spent on him. That's it. I mean, Ron Wolf for years in Green Bay, he was drafting Aaron Brooks and Matt Hasselbeck with Brett Favre on the roster, a guy who never missed a game and was in the middle of his Hall of Fame career. So there's obviously some sense to it. I would say that they'll absolutely be on the lookout. Like, if you get to a point where you sort of have checked off some boxes and you say, hey, this guy is still there, Okay, let's kick the tires on him. Maybe Riley Leonard would be like the biggest name I would throw out there because I don't know. Obviously, people watch the playoff run with Notre Dame. Saw him, may have seen him at Duke prior to that. Pretty good college quarterback, big physical kid who can run the ball pretty well. The throwing potential is higher than what we've seen right now, but maybe never going to be great. But I could see him being a terrific career backup for a long time and maybe starting some games and doing pretty well for himself. So I would say he's somewhere in that, he could be as early as a late fourth. He could be a 6th-round pick. Cam Miller at North Dakota State, he's not a big guy, but sort of has a little bit of a running back type build. In fact, there were some teams that were curious, could he play another position? But I think he's determined to try quarterback and had a ton of success up there, won a bunch of games at the FCS level. NDSU has produced some really good NFL talent in recent years, including quarterbacks. So, I wouldn't rule him out as a round 6 or 7 type pick. And then I guess you would probably say Max Brosmer, the local kid. I mean, he's a UNH guy who went to Minnesota. I wanted to throw Brady Cook. I'm a Mizzou guy, but I don't know that Brady's going to be drafted. So we'll go with Brosmer, who went down to the East-West Shrine game, and I think acquitted himself pretty well. I mean, first of all, going from UNH and to Minnesota in the Big Ten and adjusting pretty quickly, I think impressed people. Now, does he have an amazing skill set? Is he gonna blow people away? No, but he's tough. He's competitive. He's a decent athlete for the position, and throws with some timing and anticipation. So, I wouldn't rule out one of those types of guys late in day 3 of the draft. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Last question for me, Eric. Are there any locals other than Donovan Ezeruaku, that kind of stand out for you that are not just first round guys? Because I know he's probably going to be a first round guy. And I know that BC has some other guys, Kendall and Ozzie Trapilo, who really in some mocks he's been linked to the Patriots as a 2nd-round possibility. Any other local guys, in addition to those guys, stand out for you as draft possibilities?
Yeah, Trapilo is a guy who really caught my eye at the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a really solid week. I mean, he's sort of billed as this hulking, stiff right tackle type, but I didn't necessarily see it that way. I mean, I don't know. I watched a guy. I mean, granted, he's going to be 24 soon, but in terms of ready-made talents, obviously the guy comes from NFL bloodlines, has played a little bit inside, but he's played both tackle positions. Probably more of a right tackle, but again, I don't think you'd get killed if you had to put him out there. And just the fact that his length and his strength and his football character have been praised so widely, I think there's a real good chance that he's going to end up being a very respectable day 2 pick. Now, whether that fits into the Patriots and where they're selecting, I don't know. But I mean, I like him as a like a year 1 swing tackle maybe, and then a year 2 starter. But I don't think he'd be out of his depths if he had to throw him in there as a rookie starter, just because he's played a lot of college football. He played for an NFL head coach in Bill O'Brien, played for Jeff Hafley before that, who's now the Packers defensive coordinator. So yeah, he's at the Senior Bowl. I just felt like he really handled his business nicely, and just the fact that he didn't commit a single penalty last year also is pretty notable. And they played games against some SEC teams and different types of rushers out there. Went up against Donovan in practice a lot. I mean, that he's one to watch.
Eric, you got any more mock drafts coming out between now
and
one
more, baby,
Thursday?
And that's
one
it.
More?
Thank God.
One more.
The best part about working for NFL media, they're like, okay, you're gonna have to do 3 mock drafts. I thought 3, that's it? That's amazing. I don't want to do 32. I'm not one of these guys who can just crank one out every week in his sleep. So that saves me a lot of time and anguish. But yes, I think I have to file it by Saturday because it's going up Monday morning. So I'll try to do my best. Not to tease it too much, but the clubhouse favorite would be Will Campbell at 4 right now.
I like it. I like it, and I love the front page in the background there for those of us for the people watching on YouTube.
Don't forget where I grew up, man.
Exactly.
I got some local roots.
A lot of respect. A lot of respect for that. Tell people where they can read your stuff and where they can follow you on social media.
And if you could see over my other shoulder, you may not be able to. There's a Kevin McHale convenience store cup from 1981 somewhere floating around back there, and a big poppy thing too. If you find me at NFL.com, I'll be really busy on draft weekend. Pick by pick analysis from round 2 all the way through the end of the draft. If my hands are still attached to my body, so help me God, I'll come back on with you guys.
I love it, man. You do a lot of great work, and you more than anyone knows that draft weekend. We talk about the draft weekend experience for players. The draft weekend experience for reporters is a long 72 hours, man.
Oh yeah.
It is tough. It's unforgiving. And then you jump right into the UDFAs right after that. So
yeah. It's amazing. We will spend 2 months analyzing this to the nth degree. And then 2 days after the draft, everyone's moved on. It just, so I'm going to get dumped pretty soon here. I'm going to get left by the curbside, but that's all right. I'll be back.
Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, my friend. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.
I had a blast, fellas. Thanks, you very much. Eric.